नहीं नीचे क्वेश्चन नहीं करते आगे।
Hello, everyone. A very good evening to all our investors and well-wishers. I want to share a quote by an American film and television actor, director, and producer, Robert Montgomery. Home, the spot of earth supremely blessed, a dearer, sweeter spot than all the rest. I, Kimberly McDonald, welcome you all to our 23rd webinar on Relook at Your Home Loans, powered by WealthSet. Well, home is a place where we keep our families, where we feel safe, and where we enjoy complete freedom. A good home is also necessary for proper health and well-being. It provides relaxation and protects from the harsh environment. And when we are tired after work or other activities, it's home that we run to for rest and relief. Before we start this session, we will be sharing one of our esteemed investors' testimonial, Dr. Arun Apte.
नाईक वेल्थ आणि मी म्हणजे नाईक वेल्थचा आणि आमचा संबंध जवळजवळ गेल्या 13 वर्षांचा आहे. आता तुम्ही म्हणाल की सुरू कसा झाला हा सगळा प्रवास, तर हा सगळा प्रवास सुरू झाला अगदी ॲक्सिडेंटली. आम्हाला कोणी सांगितलं नव्हतं. जस्ट आम्ही या एरियामध्ये फिरत असताना ऑर्लेममध्ये त्यांची ब्रँच होती, ती आम्ही बघितली आणि म्हटलं की आपण नाहीतरी कोणीतरी इन्व्हेस्टमेंटसाठी माणसं शोधतोय. हे मराठी मंडळी दिसत आहेत आणि कुठेतरी एक मराठी माणूस म्हटलं की एक कुठेतरी सच्चाई म्हणा, प्रामाणिकपणा म्हणा, आपला माणूस म्हणा, आणि म्हणून आम्ही त्यांच्याकडे गेलो, त्यांना भेटलो आणि त्याच्यानंतर आमचा जो काही त्यांच्याशी स्नेह, आमचं त्यांच्याशी जे रिलेशन झालं ते आजपर्यंत वाढतंच आहे, म्हणजे ते वृद्धिंगतच होत आहे. आमच्या संबंध विचारसरणीमध्ये आणि इन्व्हेस्टमेंटच्या एकंदर मार्गदर्शनामुळे आमचं संबंध क्षितिजच बदलून गेलं. त्यांनी शिकवलं की तुम्ही काम भरपूर करा, पैसा मिळवा, पण एक स्टेज अशी आली पाहिजे की तुमचा पैसाच तुम्हाला अजून पैसा मिळवून द्यायला पाहिजे. आणि हे करायचे आम्हाला तोपर्यंत ज्ञानच नव्हतं. आणि त्यांच्याशी जो आज गेले काही वर्ष आमचा जो काही संबंध आहे त्याच्यात आम्हाला जाणवलं की पैसा आमचा वृद्धिंगत करायचा आणि शेवटी आमच्याच पैशांनी आम्हाला पैसा मिळवून आमचं म्हातारपण सुखाचं करायचं हे त्यांनी आम्हाला शिकवलं. सगळ्यात पहिली आम्हाला त्यांची एक गोष्ट अतिशय आवडली की सेफ्टी फर्स्ट. ते म्हणाले की या इन्व्हेस्टमेंटमध्ये सगळ्यात महत्त्वाची गोष्ट की भरपूर फायदा हा बघून जर का आपण कुठल्याही गोष्टीची इन्व्हेस्टमेंट केली तर कधी कधी त्याच्याबरोबर जोखीम पण असू शकते. तेव्हा आपला मिळवलेला पैसा नीट साचवून ठेवण्यासाठी फर्स्ट थिंग इज सेफ्टी फर्स्ट. आणि त्याप्रमाणे त्याने आम्हाला इन्व्हेस्टमेंटचं संपूर्ण प्लॅनिंग करून दिलं. सगळ्यात आम्हाला काय गोष्ट आवडली तर जसं म्हणजे केसरीवाले म्हणतात की आपलं माणूस, तसं आम्हाला नाईक वेल्थचं आपलं माणूस आम्हाला तिकडे त्यांनी दिलं. आणि मला सांगायला अत्यंत आनंद होईल की वैशाली केतकर ज्या त्यांच्या आमच्या इन्व्हेस्टमेंट ॲडवायझर आहे, त्यांच्याशी आमचा हा संबंध जवळचा आला की आमच्या घरचेच व्यक्ती, म्हणजे आमच्या संबंध फॅमिलीमध्ये कोणालाही म्हणजे काही प्रॉब्लेम आला तरी हां वैशाली मॅडमना एक फोन करा, काहीतरी मार्ग सुचवतील याच्यातनं. कधीही फोन केला तरी अगदी हसतमुखाने येऊन आम्हाला इतकी मदत करतात की आम्हाला म्हणजे असं वाटतं की आपल्या घरचाच एक माणूस आहे. रिटायरमेंट नंतर किंवा उतारवयात दोनच गोष्टी आपल्याला चिंता असते, एक तर हेल्थ आणि वेल्थ. त्यातला हेल्थच्या भागची मी काळजी घेतो आणि वेल्थशी संबंध चिंता मी नाईक वेल्थवरती सोपवून दिलेली आहे की त्या बाबतीत मला विचार करायला नको. त्यांना सांगायचं, त्यांचा ॲडवाईस घ्यायचा, त्याप्रमाणे पुढे जायचं आणि म्हणजे डोळे झाकून त्यांच्याकडनं जो काही सल्ला मिळेल त्याप्रमाणे आजपर्यंत आम्ही करत आलो आणि अतिशय प्रामाणिक आणि योग्य सल्ला त्यांनी वेळोवेळी दिला आहे. हां, दुसरी एक त्यांची गोष्ट म्हणजे की आपण दिलेला पैसा ते आपल्याला अशा तऱ्हेने गुंतवतात जसं काही स्वतःचा पैसा ज्या सेफ्टीने गुंतवतील किंवा त्या प्रामाणिकपणे गुंतवतील त्याच प्रामाणिकपणे ते आमचा पैसासुद्धा गुंतवतात. त्याच्याबद्दल म्हणजे मी हे त्यांचं एक वैशिष्ट्य जरूर इथे तुम्हाला सांगेन. मला कोणी विचारलं की तुम्ही दुसऱ्यांना सांगाल का यांच्याबद्दल, तर मी सांगेन की एक नाही 1000 लोकांना सांगेन की ह्यांच्यासारखा तुमचा वेल्थ मॅनेजमेंट करणारे आणि तुम्हाला प्रामाणिकपणा सल्ला देणारे फार थोडे लोक आज तुम्हाला या फील्डमध्ये सापडतील. दे आर लाईक माय ट्रस्टेड wealth watchdogs.
Today we have Mr. Zulkikar, who is a loan consultant with 22 years of industry experience. He is a qualified cost and management accountant. His expertise is home and business loans. With Mr. Zulkikar, we are hoping to get answers to a few questions which every layman has when he thinks he wants to buy a home. Questions related to borrowing a loan for property, saving on taxation of the loan amount, is home loan right choice for you if you are an NRI? Are you paying more EMI than you should? Is this a good time to borrow a loan? I'm sure this session will help us arrive at a better conclusion where we will be able to identify and evaluate whether taking a home loan would be the right thing to do. Before I hand over to Mandar sir, in order to understand our audience better, we would like to run a few polls. My colleague Ameya will now be conducting the polls. Over to you, Ameya.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thanks a ton. Very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining in today. And I'm sure that all of you must be waiting for it. But, as Kimberly said, to get a better idea about the audience, and, it will actually give some kind of extra talking points to Mandar while talking. I would just quickly cover 3 questions. We don't have too many questions. I'll just, for those who are doing it for the first time, you will see a pop-up question on your screen. Please select the answer. I will read the question for you. For those who are like our regular every time joining clients, they must be knowing this procedure. So without any wait, I'll launch the first question. As you can see on the screen, the first question is, are you planning to purchase new property or avail a home loan in near future? Great. So Mandar, it's a good news for you. Around say 60% of them are actually planning to, or either have availed a proper loan or planning to do it. So I'll just end the poll. 80% participants have already voted. I'll share the result quickly for you to see. I'll just move on to the next question. Yeah, the second question is, do you have an existing home loan running with a bank? %75% participants have already answered. So I'll just end the poll and I'll share the result. Mandar, this is for you. Around 65% people are not running it and 35% people are running it. I'll just move on to the last question for the poll. Do you have multiple loans like home loan, personal loan, car loan, gold loan, etc., going at the same time? Yeah. I think so. Panelists can see the live voting. I hope Mandar, you can see it, right? Yeah. So I'll just end this poll. I'll share the results around, say, luckily, and it's a good news that 83% people are not running multiple loans. I'm sure you will cover a lot about it. And there are 18%, to be precise, 7 clients who have multiple loans going on. So that's it from my end. Over to you, Mandar.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Amey, and thanks, Team Nike Wealth, for inviting me here. And I welcome all the participants also that you have taken out time on Saturday afternoon or evening, I would say, and have attended this session. So without wasting much of a time, we'll start with the presentation. And I'm actually glad to see that most of the participant doesn't have multiple loans, which actually speaking is a good news, and I'm sure Nike Wealth must have played a vital role in this. Okay, so again, good evening everyone. My name is Mandar Zartika, and we will have today we will have a discussion on home loan and loans related to properties, which is I would say is of core value or core importance to all the families while taking a decision of purchasing a property and taking a loan. So today we are going to talk on 2 products. One is home loan, the other one is balance transfer and top up. Okay, now since as we saw the poll result, most of the participant doesn't have multiple loans. So I'll just quickly touch upon what balance transfer is all about without going into too much of details in it, and we'll try to spend maximum time on home loans. So as far as home loans are concerned, there are 2 type of, I would say, variants of home loan. One is called, what in the banking parlance we call it as a vanilla home loan, and the other one is called as a OD home loan. Okay, or home loan which comes as a OD product. So typically in case of a vanilla home loan, what happens is, you take a home loan of let's say 1 crore, and either for 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, whatever is the tenor, and whatever is your monthly EMI, you pay that monthly EMI for those many specific years, and your loan account gets closed. So that is called a simple or a vanilla home loan. The other loan variant is called OD home loan, or a home loan which is linked to an OD loan. Okay, so this product is slightly, I would say, complicated as compared to a vanilla home loan, and there are advantages as well as disadvantages of this product as well. Okay, so the advantage is, you end up in paying lesser interest to the bank. However, there are few terms and conditions, and only if you, I would say, satisfy or qualify for those terms and conditions, only in that case you end up, saving on your interest cost. Otherwise, there could be a scenario that you actually will be paying an higher interest rate to the bank. Okay, so typically in what kind of scenario you will save on your interest cost, and in what scenario you will, end up paying extra money from your pocket. You will just, see those two scenarios. So typically what happens is, your home loan is linked to an OD account. Okay, and whatever extra funds you are keeping in that OD account, okay, whatever interest you are earning on that, it gets adjusted in your home loan interest. Okay, so this product will be ideally suitable only for those people who are having, I would say, significant balances in their account. So just to give you some idea, if the home loan amount is let's say 1 crore, ideally you will need to have at least anywhere between 7 lakhs to 10 lakhs as an average balance in your OD account. If you can keep that much of account in your OD account, only in that case you will actually save certain amount on your interest outflow. If your amount is, significantly lower than that, then it doesn't make sense for you to go for an OD product. So generally speaking, OD product is suitable for business class and generally not for salaried class, because in the case of businessman, there are a lot of fund flows which happens, and unlike a salaried case where, you'll have only one fixed amount which will get credited to your account on a monthly basis, typically on a specific date. Unlike in the businessman's cases, what we just spoke about, there will be a lot of cash inflows and outflows, and credits and debits to his account. And if that specific person can keep a sizable balance in that account, only then he will actually save on the interest cost. The disadvantage of OD product, I would say, as compared to a vanilla home loan is, bank charges 0.25 to 0.5% higher interest rate in case of an OD home loan product as compared to a vanilla home loan product. Okay. The other product is balance transfer and top up. So typically what happens is that you are having an existing loan which is running with a bank or NBFC, and that interest rate is, quite higher as compared to the ongoing market rate. So in that case, the very first option or the very first solution which I normally we give to our clients is that you approach your existing bank and try to reduce your interest rate with the same bank. Okay, because it's very cost effective. There are no documentation which happens, and it's I would say even hassle free. However, if your existing banker is not ready to come down beyond a specific point, so just to give you some idea, let's say if somebody's existing rate is let's say 9%. Okay, I'm just giving you an example, and the bank says that, boss, we can come down only to an extent of 8.5%, and we can't come below that. However, if at the same time there are home loans available in the market at 6.5% or 6.75%, then in that case, it obviously makes sense for you to shift your loan or transfer your loan from one bank to another bank. The other variant of balance transfer is top up. Top up is basically an additional loan which you get from bank after transferring this loan. And this top up loan you can utilize for multiple reasons. It can be for personal reasons, wherein you have to fund, let's say, your daughter or son's higher education. It can be for their, marriage. It can be for some hospitalization expenses, or it can be even for your, pleasure trips or some foreign trips which you can plan, or even it can be used in your business. So generally, bank doesn't ask you as to for what purpose you are, going to use this fund. They might just ask you, but they don't sort of get into too much of it in terms of the documentation and all that stuff. So top up is, if you ask me, as good as a personal loan, okay, but which comes at a very lower interest rate as compared to the personal loan, and it gives you a tenor of at least 15 years vis-a-vis a personal loan, which is available only for a maximum period of let's say 4 to 5 years. So when you're taking a fresh home loan, what are the key parameters or what are the key points which you should take into consideration while taking a decision? The first and foremost is obviously interest rate, because your EMI is going to depend on the interest rate, right? The next one is type of ROI. Rate of interest is also called ROI. So the type of ROI or type of interest rate is also very important. There are two types of ROIs. One is fixed and the other one is floating. In the current scenario, there is hardly any bank or NBFC which is offering fixed rate of interest. And even if they are offering, then it's quite high as compared to the floating rate of interest. So it doesn't make sense to go for a fixed rate of interest, at least in this kind of scenario. Secondly, the other point why one should be not choosing for a fixed rate of interest is, even if you take a fixed rate of interest, and ideally speaking, the rate should remain constant, till the time you close the loan. However, in most of the cases, the bank put a condition saying that tomorrow, if there are any major fluctuations in the interest rate scenario, the bank, reserves the right to change this rate. So technically speaking, it, in that case doesn't become a fixed rate of interest. And importantly, it any which way makes sense to go for a floating rate of interest for two reasons. First and foremost, the current interest rate is, the lowest interest rate in last almost 13 to 14 years. I mean, we had these kind of rates somewhere in 2007, and since 2007, the market was, had always gone up as far as the rate of interest is concerned. And secondly, you can enjoy the benefits of the lower interest rate as and how RBI's base rate or that specific bank's interest rate goes down. So obviously, in the current scenario, we always advise our clients to go for a floating rate of interest. The other factor is tenor. Tenor is basically the period or duration for which you are taking the loan. Okay. So ideally, as far as home loans are concerned, banks can give you a maximum period of 30 years. Okay, if you're a salaried customer. If you're a businessman, then they normally try to restrict it to 15 years. As an exception, they can stretch it for 20 years also. But if you're salaried, then you can get it for even 25 to 30 years, obviously depending on your current age and of course your retirement age also. Now the question is whether I should go for a lower tenor or a maximum tenor. Okay, the answer is there is no fixed answer. It completely depends on the age of the customer, at the same time his current income level, and at the same time what is the comfortable EMI which he can pay. Okay, so initially, if you want to have a lower EMI or lower cash outflow, then you should go for a higher tenor or the maximum tenor. And there is any which ways, you have got a window of part prepayment, wherein as and how you get any lump sum amount, you can do a part prepayment and you can reduce your balance outstanding or principal outstanding. And in that case, your tenor any which ways automatically gets adjusted, right? The next point is EMI amount. Now, EMI amount is very, I would say, critical or crucial, because this is going to have an impact on your monthly cash flow, typically when you are salaried customer. Now, the EMI amount, ideally we say that the total EMI which you will be paying to the bank, which includes your home loan EMI, and if at all you are having any other loans like let's say car loan or maybe personal loan or whatever. So all the EMIs put together ideally should not exceed 50% of your monthly household income. Now, if you are falling in the bracket wherein your monthly household income is, let's say, more than 2 or 2.5 lakhs, maybe you can think of having a EMI outflow of 60% also. So as such, there is no I would say thumb rule as such. It also depends on as a customer your risk appetite, because probably if you are at the initial stage of your career, if you are in the age group of let's say 25-30, then you can slightly take a call on your EMI repayment, because over a period of time obviously your income is going to go up and you'll be able to afford that specific EMI comfortably. However, if you are in the age group of, let's say, 50, 52 or 54 or 55, wherein you are nearing towards your retirement, then obviously these kind of risky propositions should be avoided. The other factor is foreclosure or part prepayment charges. Now, if you are a salaried customer and if your home loan is running with a floating rate of interest, okay, then there are no foreclosure or part prepayment charges, right? There is an RBI circular which clearly says that if on the home loan structure there is no non-individual entity. So what I mean by sorry, non-individual entity is if your private limited company or a partnership firm or an LLP or any other entity is not there on the loan structure as applicant or co-applicant or a guarantor, and your home loan interest rate is running with a floating rate of interest, then the bank cannot charge you any foreclosure charges or part prepayment charges. So if you are a salaried person and if your home loan is running with a floating rate of interest, then no bank can charge you any foreclosure or part prepayment charges. However, if you are a businessman and if your business entity, which can be a proprietary concern of LLP, partnership firm, whatever, if that business entity is there on the loan structure as a borrower or co-borrower or guarantor, then bank can charge you foreclosure or part prepayment charges. The other point is selection of bank or financial institution. So when you are taking a loan, you should do some kind of homework in terms of what is the record of that specific bank or financial institution while dealing with their customer. So there are few set of banks who are absolutely clear and transparent while dealing with their customers, not just at the time of disbursement, but even after disbursement. And you will very rarely you will find that those specific banks are having any issues with their customers. However, there is another set of financial institution. What they typically will do is at the time of giving the loan, they will give you at a very lower rate of interest. And even if there is no major increase in the market as far as interest rate is concerned, they will still abruptly increase your rate of interest on your existing loan. So it becomes very crucial when you are taking a home loan to select the right kind of bank and right kind of financial institution, so that you don't have to face these kind of situations at a later date. Now, when you're purchasing a property, okay, this is not exactly related to the loan per se, but obviously since we're talking about home loan, obviously it makes sense to throw some light in terms of when you're purchasing a property from a builder, typically what points one should take into consideration and should focus on. So the very first and important point is the builder profile. Okay, you need to see as to what is the reputation of the builder in the market. Okay, and when I mean the reputation, you have to check the current reputation of the builder in the market. So the reason why I'm saying the current reputation is because there are quite a few builders who enjoyed an excellent reputation in the market, I would say till around 1.5 to 2 years back. However, in the current scenario, they are having major liquidity issues, and many of their projects are either got stuck or the progress of their construction is very slow. If you compare it with their possession date which they have committed to their clients. So builder profile in terms of his current market standing, in terms of his current, I would say, cash flow position or liquidity position, and what is his overall track record is of paramount importance. The other one is track record and history. We just spoke about that in terms of how many projects he has done, whether the quality of construction was up to the mark, whether he has given his word or kept his word in terms of whatever amenities he had promised to their clients, whether he had given timely possession, whether he had stick to all the compliant or I would say government regulatory norms and regulations. So you need to check that as well. Then you need to also see the legal clearance and what we call it as whether that project has been approved with the various banks. So when we use the word APF means approved project file. So if you know that one specific project has been approved, like with leading banks in the market, then that gives you a fair bit of comfort in terms of if these banks have approved this project, obviously they must have done all the due diligence, and only after that they have approved this project. So in that case, you can book your property with peace. And the last and I would say probably the most important point is the stage of construction and the possession date. Okay, if the stage of construction is nearing towards completion, so let's say if the builder says that he will give you possession in 3 months time or 6 months time, obviously by looking at the site you also will get some kind of idea if it's nearing towards the completion or towards possession. Maybe there is not much of a risk involved in those kind of scenarios. However, if the project is just launched, or if the excavation work is happening, or if the plinth level is happening, or let's say the builder is coming up with a 40-story tower and his current stage is hardly second or third slab, then you really have to see to it what we just spoke sometime back in terms of the builder profile, his liquidity or cash flow position, and his track record and history. And only after that you should go for that specific project. I don't mean to say that you should always go for ready possession property. Obviously, if you go for ready possession property, there is no risk involved as such. Okay. However, if you go for an under construction property, there are other benefits of going for an under construction property, wherein typically you can get the you have got multiple choices to select your property in terms of the view or the floor or maybe the directions and all that stuff. And in most of the time or most of the cases, you get a better deal while going for an under construction property. Okay, so don't get me wrong saying that you should always go for ready possession property and never go for under construction. If the builder credential and his current market standing and market reputation is good, then you can also think of going for an under construction property. Okay, again, since most of the participants don't have multiple loans, we will not go into too much of details about this, but we'll obviously share what are the key decision making factors. So balance transfer, we saw that it's about transferring your existing loan from one bank to another bank. So when you're taking a decision of transferring your loan or doing a balance transfer, what are the key factors you should take into consideration? Okay, some time back I spoke about this, that the very first thing you should do is approach your existing bank. Okay, just approach your existing bank and tell them that, boss, my current rate of interest is so and so, and I'm getting XYZ rate of interest with some other bank. So if you could give me the same offer or maybe even better that offer, I would stick with you and I would like to remain with you and can pay the rest of the EMIs with you, provided you at least match that offer with me. So typically what happens is, let's say there is XYZ bank, okay, wherein with that specific bank you have taken a loan around, let's say 5 years back. Okay, at that point of time you might have taken the loan at, let's say, 8%. Okay, now the current rate of interest, because since last 5 years the interest rate was showing an increasing trend, your rate of interest probably could be in the range of 9 to 9.5%. Okay, if you approach the same bank now, there could be a possibility that the same bank is giving 6.75 to their existing customers. Okay, in that case, that's an injustice to you. So you can tell that bank that, was for the new customer you are charging 6.75, so you also give me 6.75%. If you are offering me 6.75, I will stick with you. Otherwise, I will have no other option but to shift my loan to other bank, because it doesn't make sense for me to pay higher EMI month on month. So the bank can either offer you 6.75, which is which won't happen most likely, because they will still try to earn at least 0.25 to 0.5% higher interest rate from you. In that case, it's up to you as to how hard you can bargain with that bank. And if they are not ready to give you or offer you 6.75, you can in that case think of shifting it to other bank, which can probably offer you even at 6.5%. Okay. The other point is new ROI vis-a-vis current ROI. So we just saw about this. We just spoke about this, that what is your current ROI and what is the new ROI. Either your existing bank is offering, or let's say, if you think of shifting it to other bank, then the new bank is offering. The other parameter is balance remaining tenor. So let's say that, let's take the same example that, you have taken a loan 5 years back, and when you took that loan, you took it for 15 years. So by now you have paid 5 years of EMI and the remaining tenor is 10 years. Now, ideally speaking, if you're shifting it to the other bank, you should go for a 10-year tenor only. I'm saying ideally. Okay, it also depends on the cash flow position of the customer. And if you shift it to other bank, you can still get it for 15 years or 20 years, again depending on your age and your retirement age and all the other parameters. But the point is, if you go to other bank and get take a higher tenor, then you end up paying higher interest rate from your pocket, which should be avoided. So that is the reason I'm saying, if you're shifting of thinking of shifting it to other bank, then you should ideally take the remaining tenor as your new tenor with the new financier. I'm again reiterating the fact that it also depends on your cash flow. So in last let's say 1.5 years time, there have been scenarios wherein quite a few employees who are salaried people, their salary has got revised downwards anywhere between 10% to 40%. Okay, so if you have taken a hit on your monthly income in terms of your salary, then in that case you can think of increasing the tenor, so that when you're having a lower income, at least you can have your lower commitment in terms of the EMI. And maybe once your salary goes back to a normal level, or maybe let's say you get some whatever increment or bonus, then you can either think of reducing your tenor, or can also think of making a part payment. Okay, now the fourth point I would say will be the crucial factor, which is a cost factor involved during the process. Just don't compare your existing EMI vis-a-vis the new EMI, because when you're shifting your loan from one bank to another bank, okay, there is a lot of cost involved in it. So the typical cost involved are the processing fee. Then when you're taking a loan from the new bank, you have to pay 0.3% of your loan amount towards to government, which is called as MOE franking. MOE is basically memorandum of entry. Then there is some charges of stamp paper franking notary of around 2,500. Then you have to pay for legal and valuation charges. Then there is something called as notice of intimation, which you have to do immediately after disbursement. That costs you around 17 to 18,000. Okay, so after considering all this cost, the net you will have to have a sizable saving once you shift from your existing bank to the new bank. Unless and until that saving is sizable, it absolutely doesn't make sense in shifting your loan to other bank. Again, the selection of bank and financial institution, we spoke about this some time back. The same thing applies here as well. Then you also have to see the absolute EMI saving per month. Okay, so it's simple that let's say if you're paying your existing EMI with your existing bank as, let's say, 1 lakh per month, after shifting it to the other bank, if you could have a saving of at least let's say 10,000 to 15,000 per month, then it will make sense for you to shift it to the other bank. And the projected returns over EMI savings. Now I will just have to sort of emphasize one point on this. There could be a scenario that most of you might be having a competitive rate of interest with your existing bank. Okay, just check if there is a scope of saving on your existing EMI anywhere between, at least on the lower side, at least to the extent of 10%. Okay, so the example which we saw, let's say if you're paying a monthly EMI of 1 lakh, and after shifting your loan to other bank, if your EMI comes down to 15,000, whatever amount you're saving, which can be 15, 20,000, whatever, start an SIP of that. Okay, just don't start spending it for your household purposes. Start an SIP of that, and obviously, Team Nike Wealth will be able to guide you better on that, because with this saving of 15,000 or 20,000, or with this SIP of 15, 20,000 per month, that is going to first and foremost, help you in building a corpus over a period of time. And this corpus obviously is going to give you a return over a period of time, which will be far more than what your existing interest rate which you are paying to your bank. Okay, I hope it should not happen with any of you, but in case it happens, in case if your loan gets rejected by any bank, okay, it's not the end of this world or end of the story, because even if the loan gets rejected, as a customer, you can still sort of approach the same bank and re-appeal. So you can say the banks that boss, for what reason you have rejected my loan. So in most probable scenario, bank should give you an ideal reason for rejection. Sometimes banks generally say that it doesn't fit in our policy parameters or in our product policy norms and all that stuff. But there are few banks who will actually or genuinely give you the reason for what reason they are rejected your loan. And if you have any, I would say, mitigating factor or sufficient documentary proof wherein you can support your case to that specific bank, saying that even if you are finding this issue, I have got so let's say if some bank says that your income is not sufficient enough to give you that kind of loan. Okay, so maybe if you have any other earning member in your family who is having a regular income, maybe you can approach them by showing the documentary proof saying that he is so and so, and he's also getting XYZ income per month, which we have not shared it with you. Then most probably the bank will reconsider, and they might give you a loan. Something which should always avoid is the second point: avoid making multiple loan inquiries. Okay, even if I'm saying your loan gets rejected by one bank, you approach the bank with supporting documents and requested them to reappeal and requested them to sanction, but they still say that no, we can't give you a loan. Then don't approach multiple banks and just give an application left, right, and center. The reason is this will have an impact on your CIBIL score. Okay, I presume most of you will be aware as to what CIBIL is. CIBIL is basically a credit bureau which reflects on your credit history for last whatever 15, 20, 25 years also. Okay, so the moment you have multiple inquiries with banks, it affects your CIBIL score, and your CIBIL score goes down. And in the current scenario, most of the banks has got a I would say threshold limit for the CIBIL score. So if your CIBIL score is below that limit, the bank straight away says that sorry boss, we can't even process your loan. Forget about sanctioning the loan, we can't even process your loan, and the loan gets rejected. So it will have an adverse impact on your CIBIL score, and either you may not get the loan, or even if you get the loan, then you will have to pay a higher rate of interest to that bank. That bank meaning obviously whichever banks gives you a loan. The third point is, in such kind of scenarios, take help of professionally qualified advisors. The reason being, once the advisors goes through your documents, okay, he gets a fair bit of idea in terms of if at all there is any risk or there are any issues in your loan proposal. And if at all there are any issues, then they are very well aware in terms of which bank will still be able to entertain these kind of loan applications, and they can still, will give you a loan. The other factor why you should approach the advisors is, most of the advisors deal with multiple banks. Okay, so they have got a, I would say, bouquet of products and bouquet of banks offering various products which can be best suited for you. So they can give you a product, or they can suggest a product which will be best suitable for you in terms of first and foremost the interest rate, then in terms of the cost factor involved, like your processing fee and all that stuff, and even in terms of the maximum loan amount which you're looking for. So even if your loan application gets rejected, instead of trying it on your own with various banks and again spending your time, money, energy, and everything, the ideal scenario should be to approach a professionally qualified advisor who can guide you throughout the process. As far as the presentation is concerned, that's it from me. These are my contact details, and I thank you for your patient hearing and listening. And now I hand it over back to Team NICWealth for any question answer sessions or any other questions if you have.
Yeah, Mandar, thank you. I think so. We have, I mean, during our registration process only, we had asked questions to our clients, and my colleague, Mr. Bhushan Thakur, will cover those questions. Over to you, sir.
Hi, Mandar.
Hello, good evening.
Thanks, Mandar, for giving detailed information about the home loan.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
It is very informative. So there are many questions regarding the home loan. So I will take first question. That first question is how to get low interest rate on your home loan. How do we reduce interest payment? It is good time to buy house.
We will go one by one if you don't mind, so that
Okay.
it will be easier for me also.
Okay.
To sort of,
how to get low interest rates on your home loan? That is the first question.
Okay. So if you ask me, one should either do a study on his own in terms of what are the interest rates offered by various banks. Okay, just don't go by their advertisements or their hoardings, or probably some digital ads which you might be coming across, because there always will be an asterisk which will say terms and conditions apply. Okay, and very rarely you will get that specific rate which is mentioned in that ad. Okay, I'm not saying that those banks will not offer you that rate, but there are obviously a lot of terms and conditions, and only if you fulfill those terms and conditions you get that specific rate. So the first and foremost point is you should have to do a study on your own in terms of which bank is offering what rate of interest, and again what we spoke sometime back, what is the reputation or standing of that specific bank in terms of their history while dealing with their customers. Or if you're super busy with your regular work and you actually doesn't have time to do this homework or study and all, as I mentioned, you should ideally approach an advisor who deals with various banks and multiple banks, and he can give you a better offer in terms of the best prevailing rates in the market or in the industry.
Thank you. Another one is, how do we reduce interest payment?
How do we reduce interest payments? Okay, so first and foremost, the ideal scenario is your existing rate of interest should be quite competitive. So if you ask me, you should always review your existing home loan interest rate periodically. When I say periodically, if not every quarter, at least once in 6 months, definitely you should look at your existing interest rate in terms of the current rate of interest on your home loan. Okay, in terms of what is the new rate the same bank is offering to their new customers, and otherwise what is the best rate in the industry which maybe the other bank is offering. If the difference between the best rate and the lowest rate which your bank is offering is, let's say, 0.25%, you can still should be okay with it. But if the gap is more than 0.5% and your loan amounts at outstanding amount is more than 50 lakhs, then first and foremost, as mentioned some time back, you should approach your existing bank and reduce your rate of interest. And if they are not agreeing, then you can actually think of shifting it to other bank. So this is one method of reducing your interest or your EMI. The other one is, whenever you are getting any I would say sizable income, in terms of if you're a salaried customer, if you're getting any annual bonus or incentive, or any increment or whatever, or if you're a businessman, then if you get a bulk amount from your this thing letters, then you can think of doing a part prepayment in your loan. Okay, whenever you make a part prepayment, this amount directly gets adjusted in your principal amount. Okay, so the moment your principal amount goes down, the interest which you pay on your principal, that also automatically goes down. So these are two ways wherein you can reduce your interest outflow.
Okay. Now you know that atmosphere after COVID has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And the demand for housing, to buy new houses or to get a new housing loan because of the low rate interest, is it advisable to go for it?
Absolutely, yes. If you ask me, this is the right time to buy a residential property. However, it is also equally important what is the intention of your buying this residential property. So let me just make it clear. If you are investing in a residential property, with a plan that boss, today my property is, let's say, worth 1 crore, and 5 years down the line it will become 1.75 or 2 crores. Okay, this is not going to happen. So if your intention of investment, investing in the real estate is purely, I would say, speculation or appreciation, then probably this is not the right time to invest in real estate. However, if you are purchasing a property for self-consumption, okay, that you are going to stay in that property. Let's say typical example could be either you are currently staying in a rented property and want to have your own property, or you are staying in a 1 BHK and want to upgrade it to 2 BHK, or staying in a 2 and want to upgrade for 3 BHK. Or if you are an NRI and you want to have a better property or better amenities for your parents. For those kind of scenarios, if you ask me, this is the right time. There are basic two reasons. First and foremost, the builders are under pressure. Okay, I'm saying not all the builders, but most of the builders are having pressure in terms of their finances and their cash flows. So as a customer or as a buyer, you are in a better position to bargain with the builder, and currently the builders are bargaining like anything. Okay, this is one aspect. The second angle is if you're taking a home loan, which ideally you should at least to some extent, then these rates, as I mentioned sometime back, these are the lowest home loan rates which we have seen in last 14 years. Okay, we had these kind of rates somewhere in 2007. In fact, in 2007 the rates were even far below than what we are seeing today. But these kind of rates, like has not been in the in the market for last 14 years. And as far as taking a home loan is concerned, this is the right time. So if you're to sum it up, if the intention of purchasing a property is for self consumption, and you're planning to take a home loan, then this is the right time. I don't know when you will get these kind of market conditions ever again.
Thanks. As you know that stock market is moving towards upward direction, and
Absolutely.
people, some investors want to book profit. It's beneficial for the repayment of the housing loan earlier or now after some time.
See, if you ask me, slightly tricky question, but a good question. That if you're, I would say, investing and not speculating in stock market. Okay, so simple calculations is I will have to see what is the interest rate which I'm paying on my home loan. Okay, and if I'm investing those money, I'm again using the word investing, not speculating. If I'm investing those funds in, let's say, mutual fund or stock market, or in whatever investment product I have, I will have to see what is the difference. So if my home loan is available at, let's say, 6.5 or 6.75, and if I invest the same amount in a market which will give me on a conservative side a return of, let's say, around 12 to 13%, then instead of making a part prepayment in your home loan, you should ideally invest it in the market. However, if you are slightly conservative and just want to get rid of your obligation or your loan at the earliest, then in that case you can think of making a part prepayment as well. So if you sort of have to do a financial calculation strictly, then I would say that you have to check the differential rates. But if you are slightly on a conservative, having a conservative approach and wants to get rid of your obligation, ASAP, then ideally in that kind of scenario, you can think of making a part prepayment.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mandar. Bhushan sir, just one second. I'm so sorry I'm intervening in this, but Mandar, just for the knowledge of all the participants, we would like to share over here that we have a calculator for this. So please do get in touch with your growth manager, your relationship manager. He will actually do that calculation. We have calculators in place which can tell you whether this, at this interest rate, as Mandar said, we should continue with the loan or make the repayment, or should we invest that money and create a future wealth? So please do get in touch. That's a request. I'm sorry, Mandar, I had to.
So good that you mentioned and you interrupted at the right time.
Thanks, Amey. Nowadays, the rate of interest, there are competition among the banks. So this A bank is giving 6.7, B bank is giving 6.5. It is appropriate and feasible to keep jumping from bank to bank for rate of interest.
Okay, so as far as jumping from, I'm just firstly I'll answer that jumping from bank to bank. So as far as jumping from bank to bank is concerned, it is absolutely fine. It is not your CV that you are changing your job every 6 months, and it will spoil your CV, and probably next time when you approach any employer, it will affect. Okay, so far as you are getting a better deal from any bank, I mean, you can shift as many times as you need, rather as you want. Okay, having said that, what we saw in the balance transfer slide, when you're shifting your loan from one bank to another bank, just ensure that after taking into consideration the cost factor involved, net your saving is sizable. Just what Amey mentioned sometime back, obviously we have a calculator for that, which very rarely any advisors share with their clients in terms of what is the current EMI you are paying, what will be the new EMI. See, generally what people do is they only say your existing EMI is 1 lakh, your new EMI will be 90,000. So let's shift your loan. But during the process, if the customer has to pay, let's say, 1 lakh or so from his pocket, then it doesn't make sense to shift that loan. So this is also, something which you should take into consideration, that net, after taking into consideration the cost involved during the transfer process, you should be able to save a sizable amount.
Yes, that is correct. Because people not know about the charges for the
Absolutely.
transfer of loan,
Absolutely.
because that is notice of intimation, that charges, search report,
Absolutely.
then valuation report,
Absolutely.
the documentation charges. So all
Right.
these charges are to be paid by the borrower only. So
Right.
that
So
is
I will just slightly take this point further. So in general, whatever charge the bank is going to charge you as a customer, okay, that you can bargain with the bank. So if the bank is, let's say, charging you processing fee, in case of balance transfer, to lure the existing customer, most of the banks make it zero only on their own. But if some bank is charging you, you can bargain with them, that saying that, boss, the very reason why I'm coming to you is because I want to save my EMI. Now, if you are charging me, it doesn't make sense for me to approach you or come to you. I will better stick to my existing bank. So any bank which is charging you, and the money is going into bank's pocket, you can bargain that. You can either make it zero, or at least bring it down to a negligible level. Whatever amount you have to pay to government, like MOE franking and the notice of intimation, what we saw, there is no scope of obviously any bargaining with government. You have to pay that. But the point is, even after paying that, as I said, you have to see to it that, boss, even after shelling out this much of money from my pocket, net, I'm saving a sizable amount over a period of time.
yes. Sometimes banks give the processing fee.
Absolutely.
That is the one temptation for them.
Absolutely.
Anyway, uh, there is a very important and interesting question. What is the ideal loan versus saving investment ratio?
Okay, so I think I spoke about it some time back, that if your how monthly household income is in the range of I would say 2 lakhs or so, 1.5 to 2 lakhs or so, then your total EMI outflow should be 50% of your income. Okay, I'm saying generally, yeah, there is no thumb rule as such, because it also depends on, I think we also touched upon this point, that it also depends on what is your current age and what is your risk appetite. So if you are in the age group of, let's say, 25 to 30, and are you in an early stage of your career, then you can slightly go overboard. But if you are in the age group of 50 to 55 and nearing towards retirement age, then it is not advisable. But at the same time, it also depends on your income, monthly income. So if you're falling in the category of, let's say, 4.5 to 5 lakhs per month as your monthly income, then you can go to an extent of 60-65% also. So it all depends on your age, your existing income, and at the same time, as your risk proposition, or the risk appetite of the customer.
Another one is, when should I think of transferring my existing home loan to other bank? This is because if I recently having availed the loan, then it is advisable, or after my 10 years or 12 years, 6 years are remaining.
Okay. Yeah. So if you have stick to your existing bank for, let's say, 10 years or 8-10 years, okay, in that kind of scenario, it is not advisable for you to shift that loan, because if you have taken a loan for, let's take an example, if you have taken a loan for 15 years and you have already paid 10 years with your existing bank, okay, now the remaining tenor is only 5 years. So during this 10 years, as far as the interest payment is concerned, that has already been done from your pocket. So you have monthly EMI. This EMI consists of principal amount and interest amount. So when you take the loan, although your EMI is constant, but at the initial or early stage of the EMI payment, most of the part of your EMI is towards interest, and very negligible portion gets adjusted towards the principal. But as and how your period goes by, or when you, from the first year you go in the 10th year, majority of your portion of the EMI goes towards the principal, and very a little portion goes towards the interest. So if you're I would say nearing towards the completion of your loan tenor or loan period, then actually speaking, it doesn't make sense for you to shift the loan, unless and until in an extreme scenario wherein your existing rate of interest is too high and your existing bank is not bringing down your rate of interest, then you can think of shifting it to other bank. But again, obviously, as we spoke some time back, that it needs to have, should make financial sense to do that. And in that kind of scenario, if at all you go to other bank, then you should take a loan period of only 5 years. You again should not be going for a 10 or 15 years, because otherwise, you end up paying extra interest to the bank.
Another question, that is a different question about the transferring of loan, but the question is, while availing the loan, search report is very important, right? But what bank does that after agreement take place, then only the search report, the bank asks for the search report. But
Right.
while before making the agreement, personally, we should do the search report. What is your advice?
We spoke about this indirectly while talking about the builder credentials. Okay, so if the builder is having good reputation in the market, okay, most of the time you won't have legal issues. I'm saying most of the time. Forget about the builder's reputation for the time being. Be it even you might have heard the name of that builder for the first time. It doesn't matter. Just check if the leading banks in the industry has approved that project. So if you have leading private sector bank or leading public sector bank and maybe a couple of NBFCs who has approved that project, what we spoke about APF, okay, that approved that project, then that gives you a fair bit of comfort in terms of boss, if these banks have approved the full project, obviously they have done their due diligence, and in that case you actually speaking may not go for a on your own go for a search report, because it will unnecessarily be a cost for you. Okay, you have to be extra cautious, then you can do that. Okay, there is no harm in doing that. But if you're taking a loan from any bank, then any which ways that specific bank must have done all sorts of due diligence, and only after doing that due diligence they will do your disbursement. So unless and until you're purchasing the property on your own without taking any loan, then I would advise that you can think of doing the search or getting a legal opinion from a trusted lawyer. But otherwise, it's not required, provided the project has been approved with multiple banks.
Thank you, Mandar. But there are some questions from Q&A in the chat box. I think Kimberly will. I will hand over the proceedings to Kimberly.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. No, I think so. I'll take those questions. So a couple of questions. I think so. Most of the questions have been covered by Bhushan sir. I mean, in terms of whatever questions we had got during the registration process only. But there are a few interesting ones which I have differentiated. Probably, please bear with me if it is repeated in case. So one question is from Mr. Pratik H. He is asking that should we opt for a maximum loan amount as per our eligibility, or should we stick to an amount less than the eligible amount?
Well, it completely depends. I'm sorry, because there is no fixed answer to this as such. So if you doesn't want to, let's say, I will give you an example. Let's say you have invested 1 crore. Your investment purpose is 1 crore, which is giving you a good amount of returns over a period of time. Okay, you're purchasing a property worth around, let's say, 2 crores. Okay, and you will have to initially, let's say you're thinking of taking a loan of 1 crore and thinking of liquidating your investment, and then taking a loan of 1 crore and 1 crore of your investment and 2 crore property which you are purchasing. So if your existing portfolio is giving you handsome returns, then obviously it is not advisable to liquidate those savings or investment. And in that kind of scenario, you should go for a maximum loan. Okay, so that first and foremost, your invested corpus gives you good return, which can be, I don't know, anywhere in between 15-20%, or it can be even 30-35-40%. So your investment is giving you handsome returns, and at the same time you are borrowing at a damn cheap rate, which is I would say 6.5 to 6.6 or 6.7%. Now tomorrow, this is obviously will be subject to your income eligibility and your comfortable EMI payment capacity. Now tomorrow, even if you get some I would say bonus or some incentive or some good chunk of money, in that kind of scenario, you can think of making a part prepayment so that your principal outstanding also comes down. Your loan will also get over at an early date. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Mandar. Mandar, there's next question from Aarti Gotekar. She's asking that in case of floating ROI, will the bank proactively reduce the interest rate or when it goes down, if it goes down?
Okay, so the question asked will, right?
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
the bank, na?
Yes.
Okay, so the answer is ideally it should. Okay, but unfortunately, very rarely it happens. Okay, see, I mean, it's a tricky scenario. End of the day, banks are also in the business. Okay, and on because of this current market scenario, not just current market scenario, in general also there is a lot of pressure on the banks in terms of their profitability. And I'm sharing you this because I'm an ex-banker and I know what kind of pressures the bank has got in terms of their business, at the same time in terms of their profitability. Okay, so the only recourse or the only source for them to earn money is through interest. Okay, believe me, processing fee and all, they hardly, I mean, they just sort of cover the cost which they pay to their vendors in terms of their legal and valuation and verification charges and all that stuff. So the only source of their income is the interest income or interest which they charge to their clients. So ideal scenario, they should reduce the rate of interest, but very rarely it happens. And that is the reason why sometime back I said that as a customer, you should review your portfolio the way you review your portfolio of your investment. This portfolio also you should review, if not quarterly, at least after every 6 months, so that you know that what is the current rate of interest which I'm paying to my bank, what is the rate of interest the same bank is charging to the new clients, and what is the best possible rate available in the market. And in that kind of scenario, you can either think of shifting your loan to other bank, or maybe approach the same bank and reduce your rate of interest.
Thank you. So there is one more question from Ms. Pooja Kulkarni. She's saying that after the prepayment, does it reflect immediately or does it start from the next month?
No, immediately. The day the bank gets credit to your loan account, it immediately gets reflected in your loan account statement. So that specific amount automatically and immediately gets adjusted in your principal outstanding. So
Okay.
it doesn't happen in the next EMI or next month or whatever. The day the bank gets credit, it gets reflected or gets adjusted in your principal amount.
Okay. Okay. The same, I mean, like from the same participant, there is one more question that generally, what is the ratio of principal amount and interest in the EMI? Is it bank specific?
No. It's a universal formula. Okay. So no bank can change those internal those internal calculations. But it's very difficult to answer the question in general because it completely depends on for what period or for what tenor you're taking the loan. So if you're taking a loan, let's say for 1 year, okay, obviously your EMI, the principal portion will be very high and interest portion will be low. But if you take it for let's say 25 years, then initially your out of that EMI, your principal portion will be very low and interest portion will be very high. And as and how you proceed further from 1 year to let's say 15 years or 20 years, then that ratio gets changed. But just to sum it up, these calculations across all the banks will remain the same. Okay, so these internal calculations won't change. So the way for let's say with a rate of interest of 6.5% for a loan amount of 1 crore for 15 years, with let's say XYZ bank, the EMI comes to 1 lakh. Then with the other bank also, it will be 1 lakh only. It will not be 1 lakh 100 or 99,900. It won't happen that.
So next question is from Mr. Ajit Vaman. He's saying that if the interest is reduced, is it good to reduce the EMI or good to reduce the number of years?
Very good question. I was actually waiting for this question, or I was actually going to talk about it if this question was not there. So generally speaking, presuming that as far as your finances are concerned, everything is fine, I normally advise the clients not to reduce your EMI, but to reduce your tenor. Matlab, it obviously automatically gets reduced. So let's say your existing outstanding is 1 crore and you have made a part prepayment of 30 lakhs. Okay, so your outstanding will be 70 lakhs. Now if your existing EMI is let's say 1 lakh, it is advisable to keep the same EMI as 1 lakh only. There are two benefits. First benefit is at the end of the closure, or at the end of the loan, you end up in paying lower interest to the bank. That is one. And secondly, your loan gets closed at an early date. Okay, so before making the part prepayment, let's say your remaining tenor is 7 years. Okay, just as an example. And if you make a part prepayment of 30 lakhs, instead of 7 years, probably your loan will get closed in maybe 4.5 to 5 years only. Only in case of a peculiar condition, wherein, let's say the same example that your existing EMI is 1 lakh. If you make a part prepayment of 30 lakhs, your EMI will be say 70,000. Now, as on today, if you're finding any difficulty to pay 1 lakh EMI per month, okay, and if you can pay 70,000 as a comfortable EMI, only in that case it is advisable to reduce your EMI. But otherwise, generally speaking, it is not not advisable to reduce the EMI, but to reduce the tenor because of the two advantages which I have told you.
Okay, that was really helpful, because we also come across a lot of investors who ask this question. So next question is from our NRI client. Actually, he's based in Oman. A bit complicated question. I'll just try to simplify it. So he's saying that he has taken a loan from Axis Bank for his house in Mumbai. At that time, Axis Bank home loan could be processed through the bank in Oman. The current interest rate applicable is a floating at 7.75 per annum. How can I get this interest rate reduced?
So the best option is approach your existing bank and tell them that your current rate he mentioned is 7.7, right? Okay, so approach your existing bank and tell them that, boss, to your bank only is offering 6.75 to new customers, 6.7, 6.65, whatever, 6.75 to your new customers. I have been your loyal customer for whatever 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you just check my record and my repayment history. I have never defaulted and all that stuff, and you also offer me 6.75. If you're not offering me, then there is another bank which is giving me 6.50. Very likely they will come down. They probably might not come down to 6.75. Okay, they will come down to 7%. So if they come down to 7%, you can still think of sticking with Axis Bank only, because again, we'll have to see that if you shift it to the other bank, then what is the cost factor, how much saving will happen and all that stuff. But even if they offer you, let's say, anywhere between 7% or below 7%, you can think of sticking to Axis Bank. But if they are saying that no, boss, at the most we can charge you 7.25, then you can actually think of shifting it to other bank.
So there are actually, this is for the participants. Actually, there are a lot of questions coming in the similar fashion. They are asking that, should I repay my loan or should I invest in mutual fund? For everybody, I'll just repeat once again that we have a calculator available at our end, and we would love to share that, that calculation with you, and we can give you the specific insight, because this number will change based on how much is the quantity, what is your age, what is the interest rate, all these things. There are multiple factors involved in that. So please do get in touch with us. In case if you are not our existing clients, you can always get in touch with us through, on our website. So I think so that's it from our end. Mandar, if anything you feel that you have not covered, or probably through questions it has not come, in case you want to talk about that.
Well, I think this was the second last question. What you asked was the question which was remaining, and I thought that was a very crucial question. But other than this, I think whatever are the important parameters, I think that we have already covered. Unless and until we have some time and participants have some other questions, then I'm obviously happy.
Yeah, Mandar, there is an interesting question from Priya regarding the insurance protecting the family members and a home loan. The demise of the loanee.
Can you just repeat the question? I'm not clear.
How home loan be backed up by insurance for protecting family members in case of demise of the loanee?
Right. So how much time I have got, because this is an
it's all up to you. It's all up to you. Don't worry.
Okay. So see, when you take a property loan or a home loan, Okay, generally speaking, with respect to your existing income level, it's a sizable amount. Okay, so maybe you can't just say, okay, I have taken a loan of 50 lakhs, which is a huge one, because if your income, annual income is in the range of, let's say, 30-40 lakhs or so, then probably 50 lakhs is not a huge amount for you. But normally speaking, the home loan which we take is a significant amount. So it always makes sense to sort of mitigate that risk meaning not risk, I would say, mitigate that obligation through an insurance policy. Okay, you might be having a separate insurance policy, let's say a term insurance policy let's talk about with an example. Let's say you are taking a loan of 1 crore and you already have a term insurance policy of, let's say, 1 crore only. Okay, while taking a loan, you might say, boss, in case of an eventuality, I any which is have got an insurance policy which will take care of whatever my dependents or my nominees in case of unfortunate event. Just compare this scenario. First and foremost, if this is the case and the borrower doesn't take separate insurance, but only says that, boss, I already have one term insurance which will take care of the loan. Now, in case of an eventuality, the insurance amount which the dependents will get will go completely will go towards the bank payment, and the loan will get squared off, but the dependents or nominees will not get any amount. Okay, and this will be very crucial for them if there is no second income or there is no other income sources if the family has got. Just compare the this scenario with another situation wherein this customer takes the separate insurance of 1 crore for I would say mitigating the obligation of 1 crore of home loan. And again, in case of an eventuality, the insurance company will pay that home loan outstanding amount to the bank. Okay, so the loan will get wiped out, the loan will get closed. On top of that, the other insurance company from whom he has separately taken term insurance, that insurance company will give 1 crore to the dependents or to the nominees. So the nominees, the benefit which the nominees will get is they doesn't have to pay even any amount to bank towards the loan or towards the EMI. So the loan gets closed, the property gets free, and on top of that, they also get the other corpus of 1 crore from the insurance company from whom the borrower has taken up a separate term insurance plan. So I would say dependents or nominees will get double benefits, and it is always advisable, irrespective of whatever policy you have taken, term insurance policy, when you're taking a home loan, that it makes sense for you to sort of mitigate or hedge that risk or that obligation through a separate term insurance policy.
Thank you, Mandar. Mandar, I think so. The client is asking that, can Nike Wealth help arrange such insurance? So the answer is definitely yes. For all those who are not aware, in 2018, we started a Nike insurance broking firm also. And through them, they will do the assessment, your life as well as medical, both assessments, they will do it to you free of cost. At the same time, we will, since we are a broking firm, we don't have tie-up with any particular broking company or insurance company, so we can offer you any insurance. Of course, with that regard, my Nike Insurance Broking RM will help you in detail. So please do get in touch with us for this also. And I think so with this, Bhushan sir, I think so you're also done with all the questions, right?
Yes, we'll conclude now.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly we'll wrap up the today's event. Thanks, Manda. Thanks, Satan. I'll just quickly tell my colleague Diksha to give you a vote of thanks.
Thank you. First and foremost, thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity to share my whatever little knowledge I have, and also thanks to all the participants for showing the interest and coming up with lovely and valid questions. Thanks a lot.
Amanda, we would definitely, I mean, those who will get in touch with us for doing this, we'll share your details with them.
Sure.
It will be amazing if our clients get help from you, because you have very in-depth knowledge. There is already one comment in the comment box saying that this webinar is very much in detail and she wants the recording of the webinar. So
Yes,
we'll certainly do it.
Unfortunately, I still thought that we have very limited period. I mean,
Yeah.
this with the same kind of content, I can go on for maybe 2 hours. And if you think that this is in depth, then I don't know what we will talk about. But yeah, anyway,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thanks a lot.
Great. Yeah. Over to you, Diksha.
Thank you, Amaya. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants who took out their time to attend this webinar. Your participation is greatly appreciated. Then I would like to express our sincere thanks to Mr. Mandar Zarkikar for giving excellent coverage and insights regarding the various types of loans and the various parameters to keep in mind for a home loan, and for explaining all the things in such great detail. Lastly, I would like to thank the entire NIACWELL team for making this event a great success with their support. Thank you for being such a wonderful team.
Thank you, Diksha. Thanks,
Thank you,
thanks,
everyone.
Mandar.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
Mandar.
great weekend. Enjoy.
Enjoy your weekend. Okay,
Thank
bye
you.
bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye.
for
Bye.
the invitation.
Bye, Mandar. Take care.
Take care. Bye.